Hello YouTube, and welcome to this new master plan. Today we are going to be talking about a highly desired muscle group, the abs. Many of you guys asked me to make you a plan to develop a six-pack, and I did exactly that. And I understand why you guys were obsessed, by the way. You know, having a six-pack is sort of the holy grail of fitness. It's sort of a status symbol thing. Once you have abs, you're aesthetic and you made it. And to a certain degree, I would even say that if you don't have abs, it's going to be a great detriment to your physique because the core and the midsection is in the middle of everything. So naturally the eye is attracted by it. If it looks like shit, everything around it also looks like shit by association. But if it looks great and you have a well-defined and built core, the entirety of the body looks better. So it's absolutely essential you develop your abs. And yet, for some reason, as I said, having a six-pack is seen as a rarity almost. When you have a six-pack year-round, people think you're on drugs because it should be impossible, right? The only way to have a six-pack should be to cut, should be to be super lean. That, to me, is a myth, and it's a very dangerous one because it shows that people have absolutely no idea how to train their abs. They either do it in convoluted fashion or they try to run gimmicks or secrets. Guys, there's no secrets. It's extremely easy to have abs. You only have to train it and train it properly. And if you do, I guarantee you that by the end of this year, after 1 year of this master plan, you will have a six-pack. You will have the start of a six-pack 100%. And the best thing is, as I said, it doesn't have to be complicated and you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay for anything. The only thing you need is your body and your brain. That's it. So today, I'm here to provide the brain part of the equation. I can't do the work for you, but I can make a plan to simplify the work to make sure that you're going to get it done. And as I said, complexity in the realm of abs is really the enemy of hypertrophy. So we're going to keep it simple. So simple, in fact, that this master plan only has 3 easy steps to follow. So let's get through these steps together. Step 1 of the ab master plan, if you want a six-pack, is this. You're going to pick one stretch-based exercise for ab isolation, and you will do it for a total of 6 to 9 sets a week. 6 to 9 sets a week. You can dispatch them however you see fit. You can do it 3 sets, 2 times a week, 3 sets, 3 times a week, 2 sets, 4 times a week, plus an additional set on a given day. It does not matter. The only thing I tell you not to do is don't do all of your sets on one single day. Don't do 6 or 9 sets on one day. Always do 3 to 4 max. 1 to 2 is also perfectly fine. This is the guideline to follow. It's as simple as this. This is your step 1 and it's what I want to follow. I insist on the fact that you are not to do more, 6 to 9, and that's it. The logic behind it is very simple. When you get started with ab isolation, your abs have never been worked directly before. They got worked coincidentally as you did other movements. So any amount of isolation and direct work is going to result in massive hypertrophic boost. In which case, it would be idiotic to do more. We want to get as much as possible from as little as possible. And I insist on this point because many times when you look up ab routines or how to get a six-pack, you are inundated with a bunch of people who tell you that, oh, if you want a six-pack, you have to train them all the time a ton. You have to do them every day for 2 weeks. These things simply don't work. They're just gimmicks that influencers run because they know that it's motivating. You feel the fire and you're like, oh, I'll get it done. You do it for 2 weeks, then you never do it again. You look down, you don't have a six-pack. And you do that for years and years and years and you never see result. Why? Because the type of training routine that hinges on motivation and not consistency can never provide any results, which is why my routine is the exact opposite. We won't do 15 sets of abs every day for 2 weeks. Instead, you will do 6 to 9 sets. You could tell me an age, 6 sets is not that much. Let's do simple math. If you stick to your 6 sets every week for a year, at the end of the year, you did 312 sets. Do you think that 312 sets of ab isolation is not enough to grow? The answer is no. Of course, it's enough to grow. And guess what? If you compare with these ab routines, Who wins at the end of the day? The guy who did 15 sets every day for 2 weeks, or the guy who did 312 sets in the entirety of the year because he stuck to it? Again, the answer is obvious. So 6 to 9. On top of that, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but in terms of recovery and in terms of hypertrophy linked to progressive overload, sticking to a lower amount of sets per week and actually doing it for a long time is of course much better for hypertrophy, and also it's seamless, it's easy. These ab routines, they're boring, they're painful, they're going to build a bad relationship with your training. My method, you won't even fucking feel it. 6 sets a week, you won't even fucking remember these sets. But it doesn't matter what you feel like throughout the sets. The work is still happening underneath the surface and you will see result. So this is what I want you to do for step 1. When it comes to the exercise, we're also going to keep it simple. I want you guys to do a sit-up. Not something fancy, not something with cables and rotations of the core and looking at the full moon. A sit-up, a movement where your pelvis, legs, and feet are stuck in place and they support motions of the torso while the spine flexes and extends as the abs have to assist with the movement. That is what a sit-up is. If you don't know how to do them properly, I made a video on sit-up tutorials and forms. I'm going to put it either in the description or the pinned comment. So check both, most likely in the description, but it's easy as fuck to do and you can do any variation you want. You can do them on the floor with your feet stuck underneath a rack or underneath furniture. You can do them on a decline bench, on a GHR, on a bozubo. I do not care. Just do sit-ups. Sit-ups, not crunches. Crunches look like sit-ups and many people have them confused, but they're not the same. A crunch is when you bring the upper body to the pelvis and the legs as the legs are up in the air. The difference is that in crunches, there is only flexion and extension of the thoracic spine and not of the lumbar spine, which makes them completely fucking worthless for hypertrophy. You can do 300 crunches every day for a year, you will see zero result because the stretching component is not there. We want a stretch-based movement, so we do sit-ups. If you want, and it's an option I give to you guys, you could also add an isometric movement to the step 1. So you could pick something like a plank to complement your stretch-based exercise, in which case you would not do more work. We still do 6 to 9 sets, so you would do something like 4 sets of stretch and 5 sets of planks, 3 sets of stretch and 3 sets of planks, all right? Split in the middle. This option is mostly valuable for people who are new to lifting. If you're the type who doesn't know how to brace for squats, for deadlift, for heavy movement, these planks can actually teach you how to brace efficiently, so it will not be wasted effort. I do not recommend more advanced lifters do planks for the same reason. You already get so much isometric work through your compounds if you do them properly and heavy, which you should be doing if you want to get big, that it's a waste of time and redundant to add planks to the program. So we want to focus our hypertrophy points on the stretch and on the sit-ups if that is the case for you. Now here's the kicker. For step 1, you will do these exercises unweighted, for as many reps as possible. We do not add weight, we do not count the reps. This is completely opposed to what I usually preach on this channel. I preach progressive overload via sets and reps and via weight on the bar. That is the way to go about it. But for the same reason as what I said earlier, at this stage of development, you can rely entirely on added reps for additional volume without having to up the intensity via weight, because volume accumulation at this stage is enough, even with no weight, to see massive results in hypertrophy. I also want to do that because I want you to develop a good mind-muscle connection with your abs, and I know for a fact that if I allow you to progressively overload on sit-ups, you're going to want to put a lot of weights fast, like novices always do. You're going to rush the movement, you're not going to give me a slow tempo, and you're going to fuck up the movement. So this is something I want to avoid. But it's not the only reason. You see, progressive overload to me is like a loaded rifle. I only want to use as many bullets as I need. And at this stage, I don't need many bullets. You can get results doing as many reps as possible with no weight, which is going to help us a ton, because when we move to step 2, I'm going to be able to take that trap card, that additional help that will be adding weight to the movement so that we can trigger additional growth. So I repeat, at this stage of development, we get the most from the least, unweighted, as many reps as possible. And that stage, stage 1, is going to last for as long as you see results and as long as you can add reps. You only move to step 2 either when the amount of reps or the amount of time on planks you can do becomes ridiculous. So when it starts to feel like you have unlimited stamina. Anyone who watched anime like I did when I was a kid and who got hooked on sit-ups because they saw people doing sit-ups on trees know what I'm talking about. You get to a point where you can literally do sit-ups for hours and you can just go pretty much indefinitely. If that is the case, it means that you're getting too strong for your own body weight and it's time to move on. So if that is the case, move to step 2 that is just as easy. For step 2, you're going to do the exact same exercise you did for step 1, and this time you're going to do it for a given rep range. So I prefer personally, and I recommend you do 8 to 12 reps or 10 to 15 reps. And of course, if we have a rep range and we don't do as many reps as possible, this also means that now we're going to add weight. So every single set, you're going to do it with additional weight. And you're going to up the weight when you max out the rep range. So if you do 8 to 12 and you have additional 10 pounds on sit-ups, if you get 12, 12, 11, 10, it's time to move on because you're getting too strong. You're starting to get to a point where you can get 14, 15 reps. You're starting to exit the rep range. So to stay within the rep range, you add weight. It's as simple as this. We never want to actually exceed the rep range. We max it out, we add weight. It naturally lowers the reps you can do because there's added weight. You build up the reps again, etc., etc. I also forgot to add this, but you'll of course be supersetting these sets. Don't do sets as standalones for abs. It's a waste of time. If you do bench, do your abs afterwards. If you do curls, do abs afterwards. The only movements you shouldn't be supersetting with that are heavy lower compound movements like squats and deadlifts because it might be counterproductive, but even that could be done if you're a bit more advanced. The reason why I insist you do this is because we all know the old fable of I will do abs at home, I will do abs at the end of the workout. You won't. You will skip it times and times again, and then you'll complain that you don't have a six-pack. Do your ab isolation early in the workout. Superset it with your favorite lift. It's only 6 to 9 sets. It's only 6 to 15 sets. You can always find space. So make them a priority, put them early so that you don't have an excuse to skip, and you will get it done. The key aspect of step 2 is this. You do not add sets. Again, I know it's tough to believe, but at this point, it's the same logic. Step 1, we got enough hypertrophy from just volume without much intensity. Now we have volume and intensity. We don't need more volume. You can grow from 6 to 9 sets with additional weight every single time on an ab isolation. I guarantee you that. So no more than 9 sets. 6 to 9 sets is still what we want. For the same reason as I said earlier, it's because for step 3, we're going to need that additional volume. So for now, the additional workload that you get comes from the weight. And you could tell me, okay, well, sure, but on step and stage 1, I did as many reps as possible. So I got a ton more reps than I do on stage 2 and step 2. How come I can't do more reps and sets if I want? It's because you will find that on ab isolation in particular, adding weight to the movement is going to make up for the lack of volume. I guarantee you that. You will see great results from it because the abs are simply not used to being put under that much pressure. An additional 5 to 10 pounds on your sit-up is like an extra 40 pounds on your squats. It's that severe, it's that potent. So if something is potent, you don't have to use much of it. If anything, you would burn out if you did. So we stay with the exact same volume. And as always, we keep an eye on form and tempo. We never sacrifice form and tempo for weight. That is the deadliest sin when it comes to bodybuilding. So stretch low under the weight, you take your time and you keep a proper technique. When it comes to this stage, as I said, the added weight is going to be quite taxing on your core. So you might want to avoid doing your ab isolation work on days that precede heavy lower body compounds like squats. Because what you could find is that if you kill your abs with 3 to 4 sets on a Monday and you squat on a Tuesday, your core rigidity is not going to be where you want it to be, which is going to impair your ability to train legs. That would be stupid. Actually, the point of this master plan is to be able to grow your abs and your other muscles at the same time, because we're not cutting to see the abs, we're actually building them, and the rest of the body is going to grow alongside the abs. So to avoid that, what you can do is either do your ab isolation on upper body days that are not immediately followed by lower body days. So if the day that follows is an empty day or rest day, it's fine. Or just do your ab isolation at the end of lower body days. That way the heavy compounds are already taken care of. And I can guarantee you that having a sore or tired core is not going to be damaging on your bench, on your overhead press, or on your curls. So you will be just fine. For the same logic that we had for step 1, you graduate from step 2 when you get to a point where 6 to 9 sets per week, even with added weight, starts to feel too little, or if you start to stall, if you stop being able to progressively overload with weight on your body with only 6 to 9 sets, now we have to get an additional bullet out of our back pocket, and we have to add more volume so as to promote progression. That is your step 3. For step 3, you're going to pick one additional ab exercise that is still going to be stretch based, and applying the same approach you did for step 2, we are going to be doing 9 to 15 sets a week. So we up the exercise variation and we up the volume. 9 to 15 sets should be plenty for 99.9% of the population, because with 15 sets and 2 exercises, you have plenty of opportunities to apply progressive overload, which is going to blow up your abs. As always, logically, the exercise that you picked is going to be used for half of the workload. So if you do 10 sets a week, 5 sets, 5 sets. 12 sets a week, 6 sets, 6 sets, etc. I'm not going to insult your intelligence any further. At this point, you can start thinking about the details. So, when you start building a statue, at the start, if you begin with the details and you start to detail the lips, you're wasting your time. Il faut dégrosser, as we say in French. You have to do the big work first, and then the details can be taken care of. At this point, you should already have a good musculature, so you can start looking at the details of the core. Maybe you want more serratus development. Maybe you want more obliques development, more lower abs. Many people want bigger lower abs, which in this case, if that's the case for you, you're going to select a secondary movement that we introduced earlier that is going to do exactly that. Now, the ab tier list I'm working on, it's not out yet, but just as a few pointers, if you like obliques, windshield wipers are killer for obliques. If you like serratus development, not crunches, sit-ups on a decline bench with rotation of the core is killer for the serratus. And for the lower abs, leg raises all day, every day, and knee raises with pelvis flexion and extension and movement in the pelvis is killer for that. So you can pick any of these movements and you can apply this. I would encourage you guys to not pick more than this, because if you start picking 3 or 4 exercises for the abs, you're going to lose yourself. You can use variations, right? To me, a leg raise and a knee raise is the exact same thing. It's a variation. A sit-up with rotation or straight is pretty much the same thing because it's the same pattern. So pick 2 that you really enjoy and get at it. Do your 9 to 15 sets and isolate the portions of the ab that you want to see grow. Keeping in mind, of course, that any good ab exercise involves spinal flexion, and spinal flexion, regardless of the way you do it, is going to train the whole core. A normal sit-up also trains the oblique, the lower abs, and the serratus all in their entirety. Once you're at step 3, you can stay at step 3 for the rest of your life. I'm at step 3. I don't do more than 9 to 15 sets a week. I don't do more than 2 exercises. Mine are sit-ups and leg raises, as I just explained. If you get to that point, you have a six-pack. If you don't, I will personally reimburse you the negative amount of money you paid for this plan because it's free. The last thing I want to add before I finally close this video is that spinal flexion itself, I know, scares some people, but when done properly under load for the abs, it's safe. I know that there is this myth that floats around that, sit-ups are bad for your spine. They're not. I mean, it's a function of the spine. If you have pain, it means that the problem is somewhere else, and the sit-ups just aggravate the pain. Or you're a big fucking idiot, and you hurt yourself doing sit-ups, which I didn't even know was possible. But if that's the case, and if, let's say, you had a car accident and sit-ups hurt, you can do something instead that is going to decompress the spine. So leg raises and hanging leg raises can be a worthy replacement if you are not able to do your spinal flexions. And that is going to conclude this video. So the entire plan, step by step, is in the pinned comment for you guys. Every single master plan I've ever done is in the description. You have no excuses now not to have a six-pack by next summer. I want every single natural bodybuilder to have a nice developed core because it's going to improve your physique so much that there really is no reason not to isolate and train your abs, especially when the plan to follow is that easy. I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.